Do you ever feel like there's this massive gap between that first loop and an actual finished track? Like there's this huge cavern to cross? Well, today I'm going to help bridge that gap for you by walking you through 2 of my releases, from the initial ideas through to signed released records. You'll see how inspiration started and developed, how I expanded the arrangements, fixed problems, and pushed them over the finish line. Over 20 years of producing and releasing records on respected underground labels, these are the tactics that keep me finishing music consistently. And if you want more free tips to help you finish your tracks, sign up to my mailing list, link below. Okay, my first track I'm going to take you through is called Bad Man. It's just dropped on Saturate Records. It's a brash, bashy, 140 hybrid of US and UK bass music. Okay, so this is the project folder for Bad Man. As you can see, there are lots of different versions saved, because at the end of every session I save as a new numbered version, and this means I can always go back to a previous version if needed. And if we look here at the first version, you can see I started this track in 2022. So don't delete old project ideas. Sometimes they just need time to marinate. I've got so many old projects and I'm always going back to them. This was definitely one of those. Okay, so this is version 1 opened. Let's look at the seed, the spark of inspiration that started this whole track. I like to start with a sound that gives your track immediate identity. I also want something that's going to be an anchor for the track, and I want it to inspire the creation of other sounds. And if you start with this, then you're setting your track up for success. For this track, that starting point was this operator synth patch playing this sequence. And by automating this time parameter and jumping the notes down an octave, it became this kind of rubbery creature snaking in and out, and it formed the identity of the track. Next came the drums. I wanted this kind of broken, stumbling feel to contrast with the on-grid synth riff. Then I made this beefy bass in operator. It's just sine waves with a pitch envelope running into distortion. Then there are some filler sounds. This one started as this break here, and I've just replayed it in a sampler, and it's got some grain delay just to make it sound weird. And a wobby bass fill. And then some human elements. We've got this vocal chop. And then there's this vocal here, and this is what inspired me to name the track. And in terms of workflow, when I'm writing an idea from scratch like this, I always want to get in all of my elements as quickly as possible. So I want drums, bass, music, effects, vocals, everything in quickly. Everything can be swapped out later, but the sooner you get everything in and working together, the sooner you can hear the big picture and make decisions on where it needs to go next. Okay, so that was save number 1. Let's move on to save 2, where I arranged the track. And to turn this from that initial loop into a full track, I used my bookend method. I covered this in a previous video, but here's a quick recap. So think about how you keep books standing up on a shelf. You put a bookend, one on either end, and that keeps the book standing up, but it also makes the shelf look more complete. Bookending a track is the same idea. You take your loop, which is usually the busiest drop section, and you add a rough section before it, an intro, and a rough section after it, a B section, as early as possible. So we're bookending the drop with a section on each side. So here I took these 16 bars that I started with and I turned it into intro, drop, variation. For the intro, or the left bookend here, I kept it very simple. I've got the main riff running into a huge reverb. I've got some vocal chops. I've got some build-up drums and this seaside riser effect. And then I added the B section, or the right bookend, on the right hand side of the drop. In terms of specifics, I just wanted to keep the rubbery synth moving and evolving through the track in different ways, and I've done that with automation and changing the octaves of the notes. Then I just peppered in a load of weird extra filler sounds. And then just your standard sound effects to keep it rolling. And speaking of bookending, I did the exact same thing later in the track. So I started working on this second drop to make it a bit different, and then I bookended it by making the breakdown to lead into that second drop, and then there's an outro section. The second drop is almost the same, but I just did a few small changes. So I moved the start point of the sequence to this note here. Subtle, but it makes a difference. So sessions 1 and 2 are where the entire track came together, and this is the perfect example of the 80-20 rule, because the bulk of the track was made with that first bit of early effort. So here we are in the final version 12 project, and saves 3 through 12 were all just very minor tweaks, because I made those first versions on headphones. That meant that the bass was way too loud. I hadn't quite got the mix balance right. So if I play you version 5... and here's version 8, which sounds a bit better. And then this is the final version 12. Bear in mind that I wasn't slogging away for hours on these saves. I'd open up the project, make a few tweaks, and then I'd get out again. And that's really important when you're trying to get a track over the finish line, is to get in and do short focused sessions and then get out again, because it stops you from spiraling into overthinking. For example, for one of those sessions, I remember my only goal was to help the bass cut through more in the mids, because it wasn't popping through enough, and I went in and I did that with some parallel processing, and then I tucked in the low end with a tiny bit of shelf EQ. So that's really useful, is going in with a mission, knowing exactly what you're going to do, get in, get out, and get the job done. And another thing I did, just a tiny last bit of icing on the cake to help the arrangement feel fresh, was in the second drop I changed the bass. I used a different bass patch just to add a bit more mids. So if I play the first drop and then the second drop, you'll hear how the tone of the bass changes. So those last few saves were just gently pushing the track towards its final shape, because it's like that classic saying, write drunk, edit sober. I don't mean get hammered in the studio. I mean write freely and fast and be a bit messy, and then put your more methodical hat on when it comes to editing and mixing. Anyway, I put this in a folder with a bunch of ideas, sent it to Saturate, and they picked a handful to release. Oh, and in terms of mastering, I only use a clipper on my master. I turn it off and I send that to the mastering engineer. I'll let them do their magic. And if you want to hear the track properly, instead of me scrolling around in Ableton, I'll put the link down below. And before we move on to the next track, here are a few quick takeaways. Number 1, when starting a tune, find an inspiring sound that will carry the track, because it instantly gives you direction. Number 2, get everything in early: drums, bass, effects, vocals, all your sounds, because hearing everything together will guide you to the next steps. Number 3, use the bookend method to arrange quickly, so intro into drop into variation. Even a rough structure gets you out of loop hell fast. And number 4, when it comes to the mix, short focus sessions will help you make way better decisions than long slogs. Okay, this next track is called Thumps. It's a collaboration with Leto, and it's coming out on his new label Leftover Dubs. So this project just started with me messing around, just wanting to play with grooves and see what came out. Like with the last track, I wanted to start with something inspiring, so I started with this a cappella. Microphone is your lucky charm. Then I sliced the a cappella up, triggered it with a sequencer, and found these interesting chops. And starting with a rhythmic vocal like this is so powerful, because it gives you endless ways to add variations later. So I like this kind of techno-y style groove quite a lot, but I didn't really know where to take it, so I sent it to Leto. And here's the project that he sent back to me. I'll be honest, it completely surprised me. He took it in a totally different direction that I wasn't expecting, and I thought that was really cool. And that is the beauty of collaborating, is that someone else hears possibilities that you don't. So the foundation of his main idea was the combination of this vital bass and then the thumpy 808 that was in the previous version, and they made this call and answer pattern, and that combined with the vocal chops gave the track its identity. And when you collaborate with someone, it can really open your eyes to different ways of working. For example, Leto uses loads of crazy plugin chains and uses effects in ways that I never normally would. I mean, take a look at the EQ on this Vital bass. It's absolutely nuts, and I would never normally do that, but it really helps shape the sound and take the track into different directions. So Leto had also fleshed out a basic intro at this point, so we had this chopped up break with a ton of effects on it. And then loads of effects automation on the vocal to build up to the drop. But this was just a basic intro into a simple drop. It didn't quite have its full form yet, so it needed a B section. So in this next version, I started to flesh things out a bit more. So I worked on this intro and I've added a few more sounds like kicks and vocal delays. In a previous video, I talked about how important the pre-drop moment is, and this track's a good example of that. I spent a lot of time getting the momentum right, building up to these fills and vocal sample that just hits before the drop. And I think it's really important, and it's really helped this track feel like it hits hard enough. And like I said, we didn't quite have a B section yet, so I wrote one here, and I tried to continue the theme of the first drop, but it just felt like the idea had run its course, so I really wanted to switch things up, so I've added a completely new respace, and then I changed the vocals and pitched them up. I really wanted the track to feel like a journey, and I wanted this part to take you on a different part of that journey. So I sent the project back to Leto and he sent it back to me with these epic synth chords in the B section, and he'd also arranged out a basic structure for the second half of the track as well. And then we'd also pieced together this breakdown. For the second drop, like I've said in previous videos, I like to switch things up and reward the listener for reaching that point. I think it's just a really nice moment to put a new spin on the themes that have been established before. So we've still got the Vital bass and the 808 playing off each other, but they're playing slightly different pattern. And then I just simplified the vocal chops for this section, and I actually really love this second drop. So from this point onwards, it was all about execution because the arrangement was done and the identity was clear. It was just a case of making the track sound right. And I did that not by going crazy with loads of clever, fancy effects. I did quite the opposite, in fact. I pulled everything back and reduced a lot of the processing that we'd added in the creative process, because that was making the sound a little bit mushy and a little bit blurred. And with a lot less processing, that allowed the track to really hit harder and sound a lot cleaner. One fun trick was adding my signature squash rack to the hats and cymbals bus, so those sounds crunch whenever the bass hits. Once we were done with the track, we sent it off for mastering to Bo Thomas at 1087, and he did an amazing job. It sounds exactly like the original track, just a little bit cleaner, a little bit tighter, and just a bit more glued together, exactly as a good master should. And if you want to hear how great the master sounds and you want to hear the actual full journey of the track as it progresses, then go and listen to the full version. I'll put a link down below. It's not going to be out when I publish this video, but it'll be out in a few days. So some key takeaways from this track. Number one, a track can end up far away from where it started, so don't get too tunnel visioned. Be free and explore possibilities until you find a story that grabs you. Number two, collaboration is so powerful. It will open up your eyes to new ways of working and you'll make music you never thought possible on your own. Number three, use contrast if you get stuck. Pair two different contrasting sounds or contrast different sections. The possibilities are endless. And number four, like I said earlier, write drunk, edit sober. Be fast and messy when writing and arranging to get those ideas down, then be more methodical and pull some of that back when finalising and mixing. For more free tips to help you finish tracks, sign up to my newsletter via the link below. And if you want to get more insight into the creative process, go and watch this video here. I'll see you there. Cheers.